Hey, what's up? It's Mr. Dean, and I have a confession to make. I've only played Donkey Kong Country Returns and not the original. Okay, please let me explain myself. I grew up around the GameCube and the Wii era, so a lot of those iconic retro games from the 90s I never really got around to playing as a kid. What's funny about that is that certain games, Donkey Kong Country Returns or Kirby Returns to Dreamland, games that were supposed to be a spark or return to form for their respective games, I played instead of the originals. But it's okay because now I actually want to get around to playing and documenting all those nice retros that I haven't played yet, so with that, here is Donkey Kong Country for the Super Nintendo. Okay, so once upon a time there was this magical game developer called Rare who developed classics of the 90s such as Diddy Kong Racing, Perfect Dark, GoldenEye 007, Banjo-Kazooie, and well, the main topic of this video, Donkey Kong Country. Yeah, Rare still exists, but they were bought out by Microsoft and have been used somewhat questionably ever since. I mainly bring this up to say that back in the 90s, Rare was kind of the real deal, so having them develop this, it just had to be a classic, right? What's really cool right away from looking at this game is that it kind of established what Donkey Kong should look and feel like. Yeah, this wasn't the first time seeing the character, but it might as well have been. This right here is where the personality of the Kong family was first established in, well, the whole entire world that they live in. Alright, now before I actually start talking about the game, let me address that I'm recording this in probably basically any Super Nintendo game I do in the future on the Super Nintendo Classic Edition. This does come with save states, which I won't be using as I want to do the best I can to emulate the original experience of playing these games. Now also, I am playing through the game multiple times for making this video, both to best formulate my thoughts on the game and also because I was having so much fun that a lot of the time I just found myself wanting to just restart and make it back to where I was just for funsies. Now before I start actually going over the game, let's first talk about the basics. First off, the controls. They just simply work. It is a pretty simple yet intuitive layout. It was so easy to simply just pick up the controller and figure out how to play. You are able to jump, do rolls, dash, as well as do a ground slap attack. Honestly, one of the most fluidly controlled platformers I have played in a long time. Heck, even the water levels aren't bad. Also, this game looks so damn good for the time. I'm of the belief that a lot of Super Nintendo games hold up pretty well over time, especially compared to N64 in many regards, but here it especially just looks really good. This also holds true for the level designs. The game setting here is a bit more grounded and more coherent compared to something like Super Mario World on the same console. Not a knock on Mario whatsoever, it's just a different type of game, but in that game the levels were clearly much more bright and bubbly. Here the game almost has a more earthy and weirdly unsettling vibe. Not in a creepy way, but more in the sense that you are literally in the wild. I'm much more accustomed to the Mario type of platforming games of the time, so it was a really cool juxtaposition to play a platformer with this specific type of vibe to it. Also in this game you play as both Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong. You start out as Donkey Kong specifically, but you can run into a Diddy barrel which then brings Diddy to your little platforming party. You can quickly double click A to switch which one you want to control up until you run into an enemy, which then causes whoever you are controlling to just kind of run off screen. Diddy is much quicker and more agile, while Donkey Kong is more powerful, being able to take out stronger enemies. Also, this game does have a multiplayer mode, but similarly to Super Mario World, it really just lets one player play at a time. Also, I do have a special affinity for this game already due to the long-standing characters it introduced. This was the first game that Diddy Kong appeared in, as well as Candy Kong, who acts as your save point throughout the game and is also apparently Donkey Kong's girlfriend. Funky Kong, who is of course only the coolest f***ing character in history of anything, and he lets us travel between each world, and Cranky Kong, who just kind of gives us hints every now and then. Alright, now it's time for that incredibly thrilling story. Just kidding, it's a Nintendo game after all. So King K. Rool took Donkey Kong's stash of bananas and we must take them back. Yep, that's our goal. Honestly, I really like this being the story. It's so stupid that it works. Anyway, time to get our journey started out with the first level. Spoiler alert for anyone that hasn't played this 29-year-old game that's not story driven. Right away, I really like how you can go through this little hole to your left and find your stolen banana hoard and just see how sad DK looks when noticing. It's just such a cute little feature. Also, going through this other hole right above it lets you get another life by hitting this balloon. Yeah, the balloons are kind of like the one-up mushrooms of this game. While yes, you can easily run out of lives, you can easily just replay this specific level over and over again to fill them up very quickly. With that little tip being said, for the purposes of recording this video and beating this game for the very first time, I did not use this as I wanted to feel the difficulty of this game for what it was meant to be in, which by the way, this game gets hard. Anyway, this level is designed so masterfully. It isn't hard, which is perfect because the game did get relatively feisty with me not too much later on, but here it lets you understand the controls very efficiently. You got some enemies to avoid and or take out depending on how ruthless you are feeling, and also every aspect of the game is present here and is very easy to find out. First off, every level has letters for you to find that spell out Kong. Finding all 4 gives you an extra life, and here they aren't out of the way or anything, so that easily allows you as the new player to find them and understand what finding them all does. Also, we stumble across our first companion, which occasionally we will run into across the levels, this one being known as Rombi the Rhinoceros. Rombi can quickly gore enemies by running into them, which is so satisfying to pull off, and running into this vulnerable wall lets you go into this cave area which is filled with bananas and another balloon. Also, collecting 100 bananas lets you get an additional life as well. Overall, this first level is so good. Also, I need to throw this little factoid in here somewhere, but the music throughout this whole game is just so fucking good. I think I had a solid 5. Wait, this song is from this game? Moments playing through here. Now, I won't be going over every single level in this entire game, but I do want to point out specific levels that stood out for good or bad reasons. Alright, for World 1, we got 5 levels and a boss fight. First off is our first water stage, which is called Coral Capers. I bring this one up because the swimming controls, like I said earlier, were actually tolerable for the most part. I definitely preferred playing the on-land levels, but it was acceptable. The only critique I really had for swimming was that it was a bit jumpy feeling, for a lack of better words. What I mean by that is that at first it was kind of hard to judge exactly how vertically high up DK went every single time I click jump, but I kind of did get it down after a while. Also, we get another companion in this level being Enguarde the Swordfish, which of course his name is fucking Enguarde. Very cute name, guys, great job. You can quickly accelerate with this bad boy, so swimming becomes quite swift. Also, the 5th level introduces cannons, and it's a cool concept. Basically, you click to have the cannons launch you, some of them moving all over the place, which is definitely easy to fail while doing this. Also, some of the cannons automatically launch you right away. It's a cool platforming mechanism, but I've just never really been a big fan of these levels in DK Country Returns, and the same applies here as well. Also, there's a boss fight, and it is about as basic could possibly basic. You jump on this frog a few times, whoop-de-doo. Alright, World 2 spikes the difficulty pretty quickly, which I like quite a bit. This game got even better from this point onward. The main memorable part of this world was level 2, Minecart Carnage, which was just a big adrenaline rush of a level. Basically, you were on this little minecart which automatically goes along a railing, and your job is to time your jumps in order to dodge obstacles, whether those being other dead minecarts, gaps in the road, or critters absolutely steamrolling along the tracks. It sounds simple enough, but this is not as easy as I made it out to sound. For one thing, until you really memorize when enemies come barreling along towards you, it is really hard to quickly react and jump quick enough. The level plays through quick enough to make it so you kind of need to trial and error your way through beating it the first few times. Even though it was hard, it was so much fun getting used to the layout and trying to avoid everything. Much like everything else in this game, it is the good kind of difficulty where it feels completely fair and doable. It is just a challenge. Side note, the music on this level is so good. Level 4 Stop and Go Station is mortifying. Basically, it is like a game of red light, green light where you hit barrels in order to turn the red lights on throughout the level, causing the enemies to stop moving. The only difference with this level is that the enemies are these demonic rock things called rocks, and they are completely invulnerable to your attacks. The only way to get through them is by turning on the red light, which has a very small timer, and you just have to kind of beeline your way through. The level isn't that hard, I just found it to be really unsettling just because of the atmosphere and the enemies. Definitely a memorable one. Aside from that, the other 3 are pretty chill, just definitely a bit more difficult than the first world. Also, you can get a brand new companion here called Winky the Frog. Winky is cute, but I wasn't a big fan of controlling it. For some reason, I found it kind of jarring trying to time its jumps, which that could just be me, I don't know. However, it was pretty nice to get an extra hit point with it. Also, the boss here is a bird that spits nuts at you, and once again, it isn't too bad. You just take it out by jumping on its head. Alright, World 3 Vine Valley is where things really start to escalate to new heights. Level 2 Treetop Town. Yeah, this level, I was not good enough at it. It utilizes the barrel idea again, and this time it gets creative by having you need to time when you land in the automatic barrels, which obviously once you get in it, it just kind of shoots you, so you need to be extra careful when going in these, which I definitely was not. This level alone is bar none the hardest level we have had so far, maybe aside from the minecart one, and we are only about halfway through the game. Oh yeah, also the next level, Forest Frenzy, is just as absurdly stressful. This time you are clinging onto moving ropes while dodging enemies, which towards the the end of this level is definitely not playing around. And once again, the very next level, Temple Tempest, had me asking what did I do to deserve this several times. Basically, you got these maniacs chasing you around in these massive balls, and you need to cling to ropes quickly and maneuver around the land and platforming in order to avoid getting hit. Now the next level, Orangutan Gang, does get a little bit nicer, allowing us to get another new companion, Espresso the Ostrich. Espresso is the coolest companion in the whole game, lets you go super fast and do a little flutter jump thing to slowly fall down, basically allowing you to go a super long way in the air. Alright, that was fun. Back to me being aggravated. Fucking Clam City. Yeah, the swimming controls aren't bad in this game, but this water level was just something else. You got a bunch of clams shooting what looks like little pellets at you, and you also got plenty of other enemies too throughout, but until you really get down the enemies' attack patterns, it can definitely be a bit of a challenge. And finally, we got the boss fight, which is definitely not the pushover that the previous two were. You fight a bee, which you damage by throwing barrels at it, but every time you do hit it, it starts quickly buzzing around and you need to dodge it during these times. At first, I wasn't picking up on its patterns during this, so I kept dying, but once I picked up on it, I did get through it pretty painlessly. Totally not like it knocked me down to 3 lives and I had to restart the game over because of it, which, by the way, if you do game over, it just puts you back at your last save point, so it isn't the end of the world. However, I will go ahead and bring up that this game's game over screen is just fucking brutal. Like, what is this? Okay, World 4 starts off with the goal of making Matt lose his mind, and lose his mind he did. Level 1 Snow Barrel Blast was my absolute nightmare. More of the whole barrel mechanic, but this time they spin around while also moving around with enemies flying around the barrels. Like, specifically, this ending section is just something else, man. Also, the atmosphere here just feels so much darker than the rest of the game, in a way being more unsettling. This is both because of the music, but also the level design has that isolated Arctic feel. Now, Level 2 Slipside Ride made me apologize for every time I've ever complained about a level in a video game, because this was just absolutely insufferable. So you are in these icy caves and you got different ropes. Blue ones which make you slide upward and pinkish reddish ones which make you go down. Yeah, have fun controlling this one, especially because here specifically there were times where the camera just loved to fuck with me when I was going down the slopey sections and make it so enemies just appeared at me out of nowhere. Level 3 continues the trend of pissing me off with Ice Age Alley, and oh boy. Towards the beginning there is a barrel that shoots you up to an area where you can get our pal Espresso, and I lost it seconds after, so sorry, Espresso. This level was more of the whole swinging on rope style of gameplay with more questionable camera moments where I would be going up a slope and just could not see an enemy coming at all. I know I said I wouldn't be talking about every single level, but everything here is just quite something. Level 4 Croctopus Chase is so stressful. It's another underwater level with the little croctopuses chasing you around, and while I did beat this one in one attempt, it was by far the most on edge I've ever been during a level up to this point. The next level, Torchlight Trouble, was alright and pretty painless. It uses a dark mechanic where you can't see anything, so getting Squawks the parrot allows you to see the rest of the level. Pretty nifty. The boss fight is against the same beaver from World 1, but he is just slightly hard, and fuck the fucking fuck out of this boss because he does this stupid little chuckle if he beats you, and I hate it! Basically, the only real difference here is that he jumps around now in very erratic patterns, but it is basically the same boss fight as before, just notably more challenging. Okay, World 5 went pretty well until we get to Level 2 Trick Track Trek, which is basically an auto-scroller. You just stand on a platform and dodge some obstacles, yawn. We get yet another water level here. Well, this time it is poison, which I guess the Kong family and all the enemies and fish are just immune to. Once again, man, I'm just conflicted on these water levels. Like, the controls aren't bad, I just always wish I was playing a normal level when playing one, which I guess just describes every water level in any game now that I think about it. Also, right after is another minecart level with Minecart Madness. This time you actually jump out of your minecart to dodge enemies and such. Another pretty challenging level, but I just love these minecart stages. There's just something fun about completing them. And the next level after this is Blackout Basement, where the lights flicker on and off every few seconds and enemies just decide to spawn in the darkness out of nowhere, which is just lovely. Not too difficult though, definitely sounds harder than it actually is. And then the boss fight here is just kind of an enemy boss rush thing where this barrel just spills out enemies from the game, which you take them all out and beat the boss. Alright, one more world to go. Finally we got a cavey area, which right away starts starts out with a dishonorable bang. You ride on this auto-scrolling device, but the fun part is that you need to actually collect fuel for it throughout the level, and oh man did I hate every second of this. Loopy Lights is another cave level that isn't a big fan of keeping those lights on, as it leaves that job to you. Yeah, once again the lights flicker on and off, and you need to hit the barrels throughout the level in order to reactivate them. Also, you got plenty more terrifying demonic looking creatures out for blood here. Platform perils, you stand on these platforms with arrows on them that correspond to which direction they go when you do step on them, up for up and down for down. This definitely did make my blood pressure get high at some points, but nothing too stupidly hard. Also, the boss fight, once again, is just another iteration of a previous boss, which is just my favorite thing ever. Alright, so now it's time for the final boss fight, which is stupidly easy, right? You just hop on this ship, jump on King K. Rool a few times, dodge some cannonballs, and boom, game beated. Go through these credits and... oh wait. Yeah, so they have a fake credit roll, which then leads into a very short second phase of the final boss fight, and the worst part is that I actually fell for this. The first time playing through this, I was like, oh, okay, I guess I beat the game. Kind of an anticlimactic boss fight, right? And then I get on my phone and then look up and realize King K. Rool came back and knocked me out. No idea how I fell for it, since why would the final boss music still be playing during the credits, and also why the f would the credits just be the characters' names? Anyway, overall the boss was pretty easy for the first phase. You just need to get all the patterns down. The second part was pretty hard, but I persevered through on my last life. Kind of poetic how that works out. Once you do beat the game, Cranky Kong talks to us and tells Donkey Kong how proud he is, and also tells us that if he was playing the game he would have done it way better. Wow, okay, I see how it is, Cranky Kong. But the important part is that we get our banana horde back. Also, I want to point out how cool this little credit roll is. It shows all the enemies come out and it says their names, almost like as if it was a theater production or something. And well, with that, that's Donkey Kong Country. Yeah, there were some levels here that boiled my blood a little bit more than I would have liked, but honestly, any good platformer needs those frustrating levels like that. It was never a case of me not wanting to play the game anymore because of them. It was always the opposite, encouraging me to keep trying to overcome whatever hurdle it was. If you were looking for a challenging retro platformer that also does a good job of both showing you the roots of, well, platforming games and the Donkey Kong family as a whole, then this is a great place to go to. Well, honestly, I was kind of going into this expecting it to be a one-off review of an old game, but I had such a good time playing this that I am very interested in going through some of the other DK classics. I mean, there are 2 other country games from the same time period, so maybe I'll need to take a look at those. Anyways, thank you so much for watching this video, and as always, peace out.